Pour yourself a cold one and listen to the best college football picks podcast going, The College Draft. Yeah, it's Daddy Soda time here on the College Draft Podcast, presented, of course, by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman, 5 teams, 7 years. Most of you know that. My preseason gig calling NFL games for the Philadelphia Eagles is over, but now I just get ready for the regular season. First up, I'll be in the radio booth, I think Kevin Harlan, for Westwood One, the opener, Cowboys, Eagles. Then I'll definitely be in the television booth for CBS. It's the Arizona Cardinals at the New Orleans Saints with my guy Tom McCarthy. And Logan Ryan, longtime NFL DB, will be in the 3-man booth for the opener down in New Orleans, where my brother from another mother, Emory Hunt, is from. Emory is, of course, the czar of the playbook. He has an extremely popular YouTube channel, Football Game Plan. If you really want to go hardcore, learn more, anything involving the sport of football, highly recommend you go to Football Game Plan on YouTube, at FBall Game Plan on Twitter. I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod, and we are off to a terrific start with college football and our bets here. Emory went 3-2 last week in week 0. Now we got a lot. Now we got at least 10 bets for you guys this week where Emory breaks down the game, talks about a prospect or two he's interested in watching during the game because he has that terrific draft guide. Because after the season, we shift into pre-draft mode, which is always a ton of fun as well. But we got games like Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame, Miami, Florida State, Bama, Clemson, LSU. Very, very much looking forward to getting to Emory's bets this week. But we got to start with how you did last week, Emory. You took Iowa State on the money line in the game over there in Dublin, and you nailed it. They won it outright. They beat Kansas State 24-21. It was the marquee game of the weekend. Just curious, Emory, if you had any big takeaways from that one, whether it was Rocco Becht, Iowa State's quarterback, or K-State quarterback Avery Johnson, or anything else.
Stop playing games in Ireland because the weather never cooperates. You know what I'm saying? And so I joked that evening when we were recapping the ball game on CBS Sports HQ. I'm like, boy, they're lucky this wasn't 2 SEC schools because they would have, moved that game mid-game to say, nah, this ain't right. We need ideal conditions. They lucky it was the Big 12, who's nice people over there. So, but in all seriousness, it was just a sloppy game, but it was a good football game. And we saw the ebbs and flow of a good football game, the back and forth nature. And I just love the clutchness of Rocco Becht. And that was the basis for me trusting Iowa State over Kansas State. I like the consistency of Rocco Becht. We've seen that before in big games. Remember, I talked about Avery Johnson making plays in high leverage situations. That's what I wanted to see him grow. And we didn't see that in the game, i.e. particularly the 4th down run. You got to get that first down. Rocco Becht was able to get those first downs, and he was also able to make some plays on 4th down with his arm and with his legs. So therein lies the difference between winning and losing.
The terrific point. I'll say this about Ireland. I haven't been there, but you're right. Every game I've ever seen over there, it rains during the game. So, number one, no wonder those people supposedly drink so much. If it's always raining outside, what are you going to do? You got to drink through it. I don't even know if they have Labatt over there. I know they're big on Guinness, but we're sponsored by Labatt. But I understand now why there's a lot of drinking in Ireland. It's always raining outside. You got to do something fun, so that makes sense. Also, I understand why it's so green and why they have such good soap, Irish Spring soap. That's why, because it's always raining. Terrific point. All right, next up, we didn't have this on DraftKings Sportsbook. You found the line somewhere else, but UNLV was laying 25.5, perhaps because Idaho State is FCS. Give Idaho State some credit, Emory. those guys hung in there with UNLV. That was a barn burner in Dan Mullen's debut.
And it was the one time where I just totally ignored my philosophy going into week 0, where these games tend to be tighter. And that's why you see a lot of upsets, because you have all spring and summer to prepare for one opponent. And so what my misstep was underestimating how good Idaho State could potentially be in the Big Sky Conference. Because now that could change everything if they're going to play like this week in, week out. Now we'll see how it unfolds. But man, now you have to really look at Idaho State like, okay, they may be a player in the Big Sky this year, because we usually talk about Montana State, Northern Arizona, and also Sacramento State, who's now kind of in that influx area of whatchamacallit. But UC Davis was another one that we always talk about in the Big Sky. So shout out to Idaho State, UNLV playing with their food and almost bit them in the you know what.
Kansas, you laid the 12.5 with Kansas against Fresno. I was a little bit surprised by that, but you nailed it. They won 31-7. I will say, as opposed to the Even Money betting podcast for the NFL with myself and Steve Fezzik, Emory is not afraid to lay points. He lays 12.5. Kansas took care of business, 31-7. You took the points with Sam Houston. You took the 10 points with Sam Houston. They couldn't slow down Western Kentucky and that quarterback who looked pretty good. Western Kentucky wins 41-24. I think I saw somewhere where that quarterback got recruited by Cliff Kingsbury. How is that possible? Cliff Kingsbury's been in the NFL like 7 years at this point.
And it shows you how long he's been in college football, because he was at Stephen F. Austin for a while, and gets the call up. So, that therein lies what we've seen in college football. But shout out to them. You're right. They could not stop. The game was tight for a while, but their defense just gave up, and Western Kentucky just kept pouring it on.
You laid the points with Hawaii, 2.5, and they kicked the walk-off game-winning field goal. That is a huge, huge win for the Rainbow Warriors, as Frank Reich and Andrew Luck fall to 0-1 in their Stanford debut. We move on, Emory, to this week. The big one, we all know it. Thank goodness these teams are playing games like this. And as a reminder, if you play a game like this week 1, 2, or 3, you can lose it and still lose a conference game and still go to the playoff. No one's going to really ding you that much if you lose to a top 5, top 10 team in week 1. If you only lose one more game the rest of the way with this many teams in the playoff, you're getting in. So these teams should do this. I love that they're doing it. Ohio State's at home, and they're laying 1.5, Emory, against the Texas Longhorns. I've been waiting all weekend to hear your pick of this one.
This is a great game, and this will be one of those games that'll go back and forth and come down to the last possession. I do like Ohio State in this one, so I'll lay those points. I know folks will make it about Arch Manning versus Julian Sayin, justifiably so, but I like the way both teams are built. This was really a coin flip for me, because I like Ohio State's defense despite losing all that talent. I love their offensive line. I love their backfield. Julian Sayin, from what we've seen, is a pretty good passer. Big fan of Arch Manning, because he's been in the system for 3 years, which is rare in college football nowadays. So he should hit the ground running, both figuratively and literally. But I will give the home edge here to Ohio State in the opener. This one legitimately could come down to a last-second field goal.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a home game obviously helps quite a bit. It just feels like, Emory, Ohio State lost so many guys. I mean, both running backs, the quarterback, a bunch of O-linemen, like their whole defense. I mean, I felt like they lost their whole defense, but they have 2 good receivers back, including Jeremiah Smith.
And Caleb Downs is the best defensive player in football.
Who?
Caleb Downs for Ohio State. Yep.
Caleb Downs is safety, Alabama transfer. I'll say this about Jeremiah Smith, Emory. I'm so glad, like when people talk about NIL or whatever, I'm so glad that he can get paid now, because it would be a travesty to me if he had to play 2 more years of college football for $0 and 0 American cents for 2 more years when he would have been a top 10 pick in the NFL draft this year after his freshman year. Thank goodness. I mean, like, that's a guy that if there was no NIL, he should have filed a lawsuit.
Oh my God, absolutely. And seeing him at the Big Ten Media Day talking to our CBS colleague Brian McFadden, I was like, oh, BMAC is talking to a defensive end, and I'm like, wow, that's Jeremiah Smith. Like, he looked like an edge rusher because BMAC's 6 feet tall, and it's like, man, Smith looks like somebody that should be coming off the edge. No wonder he dominated as a true freshman. Like, this dude is a monster.
And by the way, BMAC, Bryant McFadden, longtime NFL corner, that's who has to try to cover guys like Jeremiah Smith. Let me just tell you right now, Carnell Tate's going to have a huge year because of all the double rolled coverage to Jeremiah Smith. Carnell Tate, the other receiver, is going to tear it up. All right, so that's a big one, obviously, the biggest. Let's get to some of these other big ones. What about Florida State? Can they bounce back? They're getting 13.5, Emory, against the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I'm taking Florida State in the points, and I'm using my philosophy that I should have utilized against Idaho State UNLV that I have always utilized. One game scenario, all spring, all summer to prepare, especially coming off the horrible year Florida State came off of. I love that Thomas Castellanos kind of ignites that energy in that football team, talking smack, and is going to look forward to backing it up. But he provides the same things that I feel like Jordan Travis provided for Florida State. That scrambling ability, that mobility, that ability to enhance the run game. And Bama, needs this game, so we may see a team that's kind of pressing a little bit early, trying to make a statement. These games are gonna be tight. I think 13.5 is a little bit too much. I'm not gonna say if Florida is going to upset them, but man, in a one-game scenario opener, I'm going to take them plus the points here.
Don't go anywhere. Got to pay some bills real quick. College football is back, baby. Welcome to week 1 and welcome to Twisted Tea. You already know how much I love football, but do you know about Twisted Tea? Hard iced tea made with real brewed tea, which means it actually tastes like tea. It's refreshing and smooth. None of that carbonation slowing you down, so it goes down easier than a rookie cornerback trying to cover Tyreek Hill. With 5% alcohol, it's got just the right kick to keep your tailgate rolling all day long. So when you're packing that cooler, stock up on Twisted Tea and keep those game day vibes going strong. Okay, so far, by the way, Emory was 3-2 last week, so we got off to a winning week. So far, he likes Florida State and the points, but he's going to lay the points. Really, it's only 1.5 with Ohio State, expecting them to win on a late field goal. All right, what about in Texas? It's A&M against UTSA. A&M is laying 22.5 big ones, Emory.
Now, this would normally be the Emory Hunt upset special, but grading running backs and looking at the quartet of backs that A&M has, we talked about this in our, SEC preview, how they look like the old school A&M where they are, whoever's dot that I is a ball carrier. They got 4 of them. Even E.J. Smith, Emmitt Smith's son, who transferred in from Stanford, can tote the rock as well. I think we'll see this be like an old school A&M approach where this is going to lean on UTSA, who also has a fantastic running back that came back in Robert Henry. Keep an eye on him. He's an explosive guy, so he could pop one out the gate and head to the house. So that's another NFL draft prospect to watch. But over the course of 4 quarters, I'm going to lay these 22.5 points with A&M.
All right, Emory's laying 22.5. That's a decent point about the running backs, because even if it's second half and they have a 2 or 3 score lead, what are they going to do? They're going to run the ball. And if those guys are still studs, they can break 1 too, even if the backups are in late. So that's an interesting point. All right, let's get to Clemson and LSU. Battle of the Tigers. Clemson has a ton of guys back. They are laying 4 points. This says, Emory, it's at Clemson. Or is this a neutral site game?
It's a neutral site game. It's in Atlanta, I believe. So we
Okay, I
already
don't know
know.
why. Like, I'm looking at DraftKings Sportsbook app. I don't know why it says at Clemson. It should say neutral site game, but at any rate, LSU's number 9, Clemson's number 4. Clemson's laying more than a field goal, but they are loaded with prospects. Peter Woods, TJ Parker, Avion Terrell, Clay Klubnik. They got dudes again.
And LSU has dudes on defense. I think people will be surprised at how good this LSU defense is going to be this upcoming season. The reason why I'm laying these points with Clemson is because I still have some concerns about the receiving core of LSU in terms of this particular matchup. Not that they're not going to be really good. I just think that Clemson's secondary matches up well versus this receiving core in conjunction with what they can do up front in terms of applying pressure. So therein lies the edge for this particular matchup. So that's why I'm laying these 4 points with Clemson.
Wait a minute. When's the last time we had any issues or concerns with LSU's receivers? They're like a receiver factory.
Right, and it's normally you see a big dog at receiver. They got good players. They got a good tight end. They got a great running back in Caleb Durham, who's now the starter. Should have been a starter last year. But, LSU has the speed, shorter, lighter guys. We want to see the big dogs out there. We usually see someone that's like 5'11", 6 feet, 6'1". They don't have that right now, so I'm trusting the defensive backs right now of Clemson because they're also able to crowd that line of scrimmage and make things tougher. Now, LSU will try to spread the defense out, but I do like the matchup in the secondary for the Tigers of Clemson.
All right. Yeah. Emory, what about this used to be the one, man? The Catholics versus convicts. These teams played some epic games. Notre Dame against Miami. And this one we know is in Miami. Ian Book said that it was the loudest place he ever played, which that surprised me a little bit. But the Fighting Irish, the number 6 ranked Fighting Irish, are laying 2.5 against the 10th ranked Miami Hurricanes, Emory.
Quiet as kept, Ross. Marcus Freeman is a big game coach. Think about what we saw last year in that game against A&M. Everybody was taking the SEC's A&M, and this is a SEC, blah, 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 blah. And then they go down there and win. We've seen Marcus Freeman, obviously they lost to Northern Illinois, but bounce back and go on a terrific run in the postseason and winning games impressively and beating Georgia in the playoffs. They're not afraid to go down to Miami and take care of business. I think they will. I think the defense of Notre Dame is still going to impose their will. Still have to take that wait-and-see approach with Carson Beck and his newfound offense there at Miami. I know they're saying the great things about him and his offense, and we'll have to wait and see. But this is a very tough defensive matchup, so I'm going with Notre Dame against Miami.
It's objectively wild that the team in the national championship game, their only loss was a home game in Northern Illinois. Like, that is crazy. And then they beat Georgia in the Superdome. They beat Penn State in the Orange Bowl. Or whatever they call it. They beat, you reference it, Texas A&M. Like, you're right. I mean, the only game and they lost to Ohio State. They just kind of ran out of steam at that point. After they gave Riley Leonard 22 carries on the opening drive, I think it was just about, that was just, by the way, Riley Leonard went over 20 miles an hour on the GPS over the weekend, NFL preseason. He's like 230. Maybe you should remove the linebacker. He's going over 20 miles an hour at 230. All right. What about Virginia Tech getting 8 points against the South Carolina Gamecocks, Emory?
No one's talking about Kyron Drones, the quarterback for Virginia Tech, who came back to the Hokie program. And this is a situation where the same argument I made for Florida State keeping this one close, I can make for Virginia Tech. There's a lot going on with Virginia Tech. I'm a big Brent Pry guy. I love how he coaches. I love his enthusiasm. And they need this game. So when you have that kind of desperation, along with a talented returning quarterback, and Virginia Tech can pull all kind of rabbits out of the hat, we still want to see the consistency rise for Lenora Sellers. Been watching the SEC documentary on Netflix, and I love how Coach Beamer coaches those guys. I love the mindset of Lenore Sellers, so I'm excited about him. Their defense is really good too. So this one is going to be one of those underrated great matchups. I think this one is more of a 4-point field goal type game than 8 points.
Emory is taking Virginia Tech plus the 8. He also, of course, laying the 2.5 with the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Bill Belichick going against TCU. I still can't believe I'm saying this. I don't even know if I'm going to believe he's actually doing it until I see him on the sideline. North Carolina is getting 3 points against the Horned Frogs, Emory.
Give me North Carolina and the points here. I feel bad for TCU because, they were favorites when Coach Prime made his debut at Colorado, and they went down there and beat them in Fort Worth in a fantastic, wild shootout game. And now the first game of this season is against Bill Belichick and, his first time as a college coach in North Carolina. But what I love about this matchup that no one's discussing is we know Bill Belichick will have his team disciplined, fundamentally sound, and I like that they went out and grabbed Gio Lopez, the tremendous quarterback from South Alabama, dual threat guy, which could be the difference. I think TCU is going to come into an adverse situation against North Carolina because there's no tape on North Carolina. There's tape on individual players, but there's no tape of a collegiate Bill Belichick. You don't know what they have in store. And that wild card, to me, yields itself to it being upset Saturday for TCU.
That is a terrific point, Emory. Absolutely terrific point. Belichick's going to do all kinds of stuff that TCU is not ready for. That is he changes the whole team around week to week game plan anyway. But especially in this game, those TCU coaches, gosh, can you imagine how much time they put in trying to figure out what they think North Carolina might do for this game? All right, what about the Orangemen? Coming off the best year for Syracuse in a while. Now, Kyle McCord's gone, so they got the Notre Dame transfer who, to use a Emory expression, quiet as that is kept, his drive at the end of the first half against Penn State turned that whole game around for Notre Dame. Steve Angeli, he turned the whole thing around. They couldn't do anything with Riley Leonard, and then this guy comes in. Next thing you know, Notre Dame wins. Now he's the quarterback at Syracuse. They're getting 13.5, Emory, against the Volunteers.
This was the game that on paper, when you look at Syracuse and all that they lost, you're like, oh, ladies, 13.5 points with Tennessee. However, there are a couple of elements. Steve Angeli talked about, like he came in there, was dotting up that Penn State defense, got Notre Dame back in that ball game with his passing. So they replaced McCord with him. But also the Fran Brown effect. Like, that's the underdog in every, like, you never know. You talk about Belichick not knowing you never know what Fran Brown is going to do, but he will have his guys ready to play. And I think Tennessee's offense kind of lost its luster because of how the rule changes have evolved over college football, and everybody's running this sort of type of offense. So you kind of seen it already. You know how to game plan for it. It's not as unique as it used to be. And you're breaking in a new quarterback in Joey Aguilar, who's a talented player. You just want to see him get back to what we saw in 2023 as opposed to what we saw last year at App State. So this one is going to be close. I will say it's indoors. It's a neutral field. Fran Brown effect, new quarterback that's very talented, that's looking to prove himself like Kyle McCord was. Give me Syracuse in the points here.
Time to finish this episode strong right after this. Man, it felt good to crush some Labatt Blue Limes over the weekend after my game Friday night and get credit for them. How do I get credit? It's buy beer, get gear. You just go to the website, snap a photo of your receipt, upload it instantly to rack up points for exclusive merch. First of all, it's the best tasting light beer. Secondly, they're giving away free stuff. All you need to do is go to rewards.labattusa.com to sign up. Buy beer, get gear. All right, Emory's taking the 13.5 with Syracuse. And they're at home, right? Or is this a neutral site?
It's a neutral site game.
Okay. I got a DraftKings Sportsbook. I love you, but you're killing me. All right, Montana State is getting 29.5 against Oregon. I love me some Montana State, but they don't have touchdown Tommy anymore, Emory.
But this is still a proud program. This is like the same thing we talk about with North Dakota State. They lost their, starting quarterback who won the national championship. Oh, this dude here can play too? So I'm pretty sure they got somebody in tow. But this is a proud program that revels in these type of games, if they won't get blown out, they won't upset Oregon. Oregon is talented. Dante Moore is, sat behind, Dylan Gabriel, learned the system, and now he's ready to step into a turnkey situation. I'm going to take Montana State to keep this under the number because of what the Bobcats bring and how they'll approach this game. They want to make a statement for the FCS and say, hey, look, we can compete. Last year they came back and beat New Mexico. Granted, it is New Mexico. However, they won that ball game, so we can see them keep this one closer than the experts think.
Totally agree on that one, by the way. I would take Montana State and the points. Those guys are way better than people realize. The elite FCS teams, North Dakota States, the Montana States, they're better than the last 20, 30 G5 teams easily. All right, last, of course. It's not Oklahoma, Michigan, okay? He's got to get his alma mater in here. Louisiana against Rice, the Ragin' Cajun, still the best nickname in college football, by the way. They're laying 13.5 against the Rice Owls, Emory.
Ross, I've used this before, and I will use it again because it's so apt. Cajuns and Rice, you know what we do, Rice, son? Gumbo, jambalaya, boudin, all that, man. Like, tell Rice, get up out of here, man. Get him out of here. Ladies, 13.5 points with the Ragin' Cajun. Shout out to our colleague at CBS, Taylor McHarg, because last time these two teams played, Rice won. So I have no room to stand, no leg to stand on. But this time is different. Ladies, points with the Ragin' Cajuns.
Cannot wait till next Monday. We'll recap all of your bets, Emory, and then get ready for college football week 2. At least 10 college football bets every week, and we let you know how we did the week before so you can keep us honest. At F-Ball Game Plan, I'm at Ross Tucker NFL. We are at Ross Tucker Pod. The keg is kicked. We are all tapped out.
Thanks for tuning in to College Draft. Make sure to also check out the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Even Money, and Fantasy Feast, all on the DraftKings Network, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.